The next thing I remember is a police officer coming to my room and shining a flashlight.
Imagine a home that seemed like it had everything: money, beauty, love, success. Now imagine that home becoming the center of one of the darkest, most twisted murder cases in American history. JonBenet Ramsey was born into what looked like a dream life. Her father, John Ramsey, was a millionaire tech executive. Her mother, Patsy, was a former beauty queen who knew how to captivate an audience, and she passed that charm down to her daughter. From the outside, the Ramseys had it all: a luxurious home in Boulder, Colorado, a life filled with pageants, parties, and privilege. And at the heart of it all was little JonBenet, a 6-year-old with a megawatt smile, blonde curls, and a stage presence that could outshine women 10 times her age. But behind the glitter and gold, something darker was hiding, something no one saw coming. JonBenet wasn't just any child. She was a rising star in the world of child beauty pageants, crowned, cheered, adored by thousands. But to many watching from the outside, there was something off. Why did a 6-year-old have to perform in full makeup and glamorous outfits? Why was her childhood being fast-tracked into stardom? Was it ambition, or was it something more disturbing? And then everything came crashing down. It was the day after Christmas, 1996. The Ramsey home should have been glowing with holiday cheer, ribbons, gifts, laughter. Instead, something bone-chilling was found at the foot of the staircase: a 3-page ransom note. Not 1 page, 3. It wasn't scrawled in panic like most ransom notes. No, it was written carefully, thoughtfully, almost rehearsed. The demand? Exactly $118,000, the exact amount of John Ramsey's holiday bonus. Not a dollar more, not a dollar less. Patsy Ramsey read the note. She screamed. Her daughter, JonBenet, was missing. Police were called. Chaos unfolded. But the story didn't end there. It got worse, so much worse. Later that very same day, John Ramsey would go down into the basement of their mansion and discover the lifeless body of his daughter hidden behind a door. She had been brutally assaulted. Her skull was fractured. She had been strangled with a garrote made from a paintbrush handle, one that belonged to her mother. This wasn't just a murder. This wasn't just a kidnapping gone wrong. This was a carefully staged scene designed to manipulate everyone watching. The country went into shock. News anchors couldn't stop talking about it. The beautiful little pageant queen found dead in her own home on Christmas Day. But that was just the beginning. What happened over the next few days, how the police handled the scene, how the evidence was treated, how the media spun the story, would make this tragedy one of the most controversial and suspicious investigations in American criminal history. If you thought the murder itself was horrifying, wait until you hear what happened next. When police arrived at the Ramsey mansion, they didn't treat it like a crime scene. They treated it like a missing person case, even after finding the ransom note. It was a catastrophic misjudgment. Only JonBenet's bedroom was sealed off. The rest of the house, open, unsecured. People came and went. Family, friends, officers, even a victim advocate, touching things, walking around, possibly destroying evidence without even realizing it. And then came the worst mistake of all. John Ramsey picked up his daughter's body. Instead of waiting for forensic investigators to document the scene, he carried her upstairs, holding the very evidence that could have solved the case. Her clothing, the blanket she was wrapped in, the tape over her mouth, all potentially critical clues now compromised forever. Let that sink in. A murder victim was moved before a single piece of forensic photography was taken. At that moment, the investigation was already unraveling. Investigators lost their chance at a clean scene. They lost their chance at a controlled timeline. They lost their grip on the truth. And maybe that was the point. Some believe this wasn't just incompetence, it was sabotage, intentional or not, that protected someone inside that house. Here's where the story shifts from tragic to straight up bizarre. Most ransom notes are short, panicked, sloppy. But this one? 2.5 pages, written calmly, deliberately, and oddly theatrical. It quoted movies like Dirty Harry. It used strange language like, "We respect your business." It was written on a notepad from inside the house. using a pen from inside the house. Think about that. What kind of kidnapper breaks into a home, writes a long letter on site, and doesn't bring their own tools? You'd have to be either incredibly stupid or incredibly comfortable in that house. Even stranger? The note demanded exactly $118,000. Again, the exact amount of John Ramsey's recent bonus. Not a round number, not $500,000. That's not a guess, that's insider knowledge. So who knew that amount? Even handwriting analysts were split. Some claimed the writing resembled Patsy Ramsey's, others weren't so sure. But one thing they all agreed on, this note was staged. Whoever wrote it wasn't planning to actually take JonBenet anywhere, because JonBenet was already dead when it was written. And yet, there was no forced entry, no broken locks, no footprints in the snow. So if there was no break-in, then who was already inside the house? And why did the note exist at all? Some theorists believe the note was a distraction, a cover-up to steer police away from what really happened in that basement. A decoy, a smokescreen, a desperate attempt to redirect suspicion. And sadly, it worked. As the media swarmed the Ramsey home and investigators scrambled to make sense of the evidence, a chilling shift took place. Suspicion turned inward. At first, the Ramseys were portrayed as devastated parents. But soon, headlines changed. Whispers grew louder, and America started to ask, what if the killer never left the house? There were no signs of forced entry, no broken windows, no screams, no struggle, just a dead child, a suspicious note, and a family that refused to cooperate fully with investigators. John and Patsy Ramsey lawyered up fast. They declined police interviews for months. When they finally spoke, it was together, not separately. A huge red flag in any serious homicide investigation. When two potential suspects are questioned together, their stories can easily be rehearsed, protected, or manipulated. Then there was Burke, just 9 years old, a quiet child, barely seen, and yet, theories exploded online that maybe, just maybe, he knew more than he let on. Some claimed he may have struck JonBenet in a fit of rage. Others said the family covered it up to protect him. No charges were ever filed. But that silence, that avoidance, it only fueled speculation. The public was divided. Was this a grieving family or a well-orchestrated cover-up? TV specials, tabloid headlines, conspiracy forums, late-night discussions. The Ramseys weren't just suspects. They were now villains in the eyes of a nation, trapped in a storm of media chaos and investigative failure. But then came the moment no one expected. In 2003, 7 years after JonBenet's death, technology finally caught up to the mystery. New forensic methods allowed experts to extract trace amounts of DNA from JonBenet's clothing. What they found sent shockwaves through the case. The DNA belonged to an unknown male. And most importantly, it did not match John, Patsy, or Burke Ramsey. That one discovery changed everything. The Ramseys, long treated as the prime suspects, were publicly cleared by the Boulder District Attorney's Office. Not just in whispers, but in writing. The police apologized. The press was told to back off. The narrative shifted from guilty family to unsolved mystery. But if the DNA belonged to someone outside the family, who was he? Why wasn't he caught? Why hasn't he been identified? This mystery man's genetic fingerprint remains locked in the database to this day. A ghost, a shadow, a chilling reminder that the truth might still be out there, but buried in bureaucracy, mishandled evidence, or time. And yet, despite the apology and the clearance, the damage to the Ramseys was already done. Their reputations were shattered, their lives forever stained by public suspicion. Patsy Ramsey died in 2006, still under a cloud of doubt in the court of public opinion. And Burke? He disappeared from the spotlight completely. Until now. After nearly 3 decades of silence, Burke Ramsey, the quiet, withdrawn boy at the center of it all, finally spoke. And what he revealed wasn't just personal, it was raw, emotional, and deeply unsettling. He described the pain of losing his sister, the trauma of growing up under constant suspicion, the fear, the confusion, the crushing weight of a mystery that stole not just JonBenét's life, but the innocence of his own. But most shocking? He didn't hold back. Burke criticized law enforcement for botching the investigation from the very beginning. He questioned how anyone could trust the conclusions when the crime scene was left open, evidence contaminated, and the ransom note ignored for what it truly was, a lie hiding something darker. And then, with calm but chilling clarity, Burke said what millions have thought for years. We need to test the evidence again, everything, with today's DNA technology. Because someone out there got away with murder. This wasn't just about clearing his name. This was a plea for justice, not for headlines, not for revenge, but for JonBenet. She was 6 years old, a child, a light that was extinguished far too soon in a house that should have been her sanctuary. And now, nearly 30 years later, the case remains unsolved. Someone knows the truth. Someone has carried that secret for decades. And thanks to Burke's voice, that silence is starting to crack. So the question is no longer if justice will come, but when. And when it does, it won't just be justice for JonBenet. It'll be justice for every lie, every failure, and every person who was silenced, including the little girl with the golden crown who never got to grow up.